I had always prided myself on being a professional. Working at the marketing firm was a dream come true, especially under the mentorship of Jack, my boss. Charismatic and ambitious, he had a way of inspiring his team that made us want to excel. But as I spent more time in the office, I began to sense an undercurrent of something more, a tension that hung in the air whenever we were alone. It all started with a project we were working on together. Late nights in the office turned into conversations that felt personal, charged with an energy that left me feeling both exhilarated and uneasy. I found myself drawn to Jack's intelligence, his passion, and the way he seemed to see me, not just as an employee, but as someone who mattered. I could tell he appreciated my ideas, often seeking my input during meetings when I least expected it. One Friday evening, after a long week, we were in the office finishing up a presentation for a client. The fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow, but the atmosphere was anything but cold. As we reviewed the slides, our shoulders brushed against each other, and I felt a jolt of electricity that made my heart race. It was in that moment that I realized how much I admired him, how much I craved his approval. "Do you ever feel like we're on the edge of something?" Jack asked, his gaze intense. "On the edge of what?" I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "Of taking our work to the next level? Or maybe something more?" He leaned back in his chair, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. I knew I should laugh it off, maintain my professionalism, but the thrill of the unspoken possibility sent my mind racing. Did he mean what I thought he meant? The tension had grown palpable, and I could feel my pulse quicken. "Maybe," I said softly, feeling a rush of vulnerability. "But we have to focus on the project first." "Of course," he replied, but I could tell he wasn't ready to let it go. The glint in his eyes spoke volumes, and for a moment, I wondered if we were both teetering on the brink of crossing a line we shouldn't. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the office grew quieter, and the world outside faded away. The air was thick with possibilities, and I felt caught in a whirlwind of emotions. I wanted to keep things professional, but the connection was undeniable. Finally, we wrapped up our work and decided to take a break. Jack suggested we head to the locker room to freshen up before our final review. I hesitated but agreed, my heart racing at the thought of being alone with him in such an intimate setting. Little did I know that this would be a turning point in our relationship, setting the stage for what was to come. As we entered the locker room, the atmosphere shifted. The stark fluorescent lights were replaced by a softer, more subdued glow. It felt like stepping into a sanctuary, away from the stresses of work and the prying eyes of colleagues. The air was filled with the faint scent of soap and shampoo, a reminder that this space was meant for relaxation. I hung my bag on a nearby bench, and Jack moved to the lockers at the far end. I could hear the sounds of him rummaging through his belongings, the metallic clinks echoing softly in the quiet room. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the fluttering in my chest. Was I really going to share this moment with him? "Hey, do you want to grab a drink after this?" he called out, his voice light but laced with a hint of something deeper. "Sure, that sounds nice," I replied, trying to sound casual. My heart raced at the thought of spending more time with him outside the confines of the office. As I leaned against the wall, I caught a glimpse of him through the mirror. Jack was tall and fit, his dark hair slightly tousled. There was a magnetism about him that I had always found attractive, but now, in this relaxed setting, it felt magnified. The way he carried himself exuded confidence, and I couldn't help but admire the way he seemed so at ease. Suddenly, he turned to me, his expression serious. "Nancy, can I ask you something?" I straightened, curiosity piqued. "Of course. Do you ever think about what happens when lines blur in the workplace? About how easily we can cross them?" His eyes locked onto mine, a mix of vulnerability and intensity radiating from him. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "I think it's something we have to be careful about," I said, my voice steady despite the rush of emotions. "We have our careers to think of." "Right," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "But sometimes, I wonder if it's worth the risk." The tension in the room thickened, and for a moment, I was unsure how to respond. I felt like we were on a tightrope, balancing between professionalism and something much more dangerous. Part of me was exhilarated, but another part was terrified of what this could mean for us. Before I could gather my thoughts, he took a step closer, the distance between us shrinking. I could feel the heat radiating from him, and my breath caught in my throat. This was a moment I had both anticipated and dreaded. "Jack, we can't," I started, but he raised a hand, interrupting me. "I know. But just for tonight, can we forget about the rules? Just for a little while?" His voice was low, earnest, and my resolve began to falter. In that instant, the air crackled with possibilities. The room felt charged, and I could almost hear my heartbeat drowning out all rational thought. I wanted to step back, to maintain that boundary, but there was something intoxicating about his words, an allure that made me question everything. The locker room, once a place of mundane routines, had transformed into a crossroads for our relationship, a place where the professional and the personal collided. "Just tonight," I whispered, a decision forming in my mind that would change everything. The tension between us escalated as Jack took another step closer. The air was electric, and I felt an overwhelming urge to lean into that connection, to explore the possibilities. But the weight of our professional roles loomed large in my mind. "Just tonight," I echoed, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. What did that mean? Would we really cross a line? Or was this merely an escape from the pressures of work? Jack searched my eyes, as if gauging my willingness to take that leap. "We don't have to do anything we're not comfortable with," he assured me, his tone soothing yet charged. "But I can't ignore how I feel about you." The honesty in his words was disarming. I had sensed the chemistry between us, but hearing him articulate it made my heart race. I had to admit, I had thought about what it would be like to be more than just colleagues. The idea thrilled me, but I still felt a twinge of caution. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the pull between us, a magnetic force drawing me in. "Honestly? Yes. I've thought about it a lot," he replied, his gaze steady. "I know the risks, but I can't help but feel that there's something real here." In that moment, my mind flashed to the consequences. I thought about the office gossip, the awkwardness of seeing each other the next day, the potential fallout if things went wrong. Yet a part of me craved the adventure, the thrill of something new and exciting. "I think I feel it too," I admitted, a mixture of fear and anticipation coursing through me. "But what if it changes everything?" "It might," Jack acknowledged, stepping even closer. "But isn't that what life is about? Taking risks?" The air around us thickened with the weight of our unspoken desires. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights faded into the background as I focused entirely on him. The room felt smaller, the world outside forgotten. I knew that what we were about to do could alter our relationship forever. But at that moment, I couldn't bring myself to pull away. "I'm willing to find out," I said finally, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess myself. He reached for my hand, his touch igniting a spark that traveled through me. The warmth of his skin against mine felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I glanced around the locker room, as if expecting someone to walk in and shatter this fragile moment. But we were alone, and it was just the two of us. "I've wanted to get to know you better," Jack said softly, his thumb brushing against my palm. "More than just work." As I met his gaze, I saw a reflection of my own feelings, a mixture of longing and uncertainty. Me too, I confessed, feeling emboldened. But let's take it slow. Slow is good, he agreed, his smile genuine. Let's just enjoy this moment. With that, we began to talk, sharing stories about our lives, our dreams, and what we wanted from the future. The conversation flowed easily, laughter punctuating the air, dissolving the tension that had once filled the room. I felt a connection deepen, the boundaries of our professional relationship blurring even further. But as we continued to talk, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something complicated. The thrill of the moment was intoxicating, yet the uncertainty loomed like a shadow. As our conversation unfolded, the air between us seemed to crackle with newfound intimacy. We exchanged stories and laughter, sharing moments that felt both vulnerable and exhilarating. It was refreshing to let down my guard, to reveal the parts of myself I had kept hidden behind the facade of professionalism. Jack listened intently, his eyes sparkling with interest, and I felt a connection that surpassed anything I had ever experienced in the office. But as the minutes turned into hours, I began to realize the implications of what we were doing. I was standing on the precipice of something that could redefine my life, my career, my friendships, and my own sense of self. It was thrilling, yet terrifying. "Do you think this will change things between us?" I finally asked, my voice tinged with uncertainty. "Maybe," Jack replied, his tone contemplative. "But I think change can be good. It's all about how we handle it. If we can be honest with each other, I believe we can navigate this." His words struck a chord, but I couldn't help but feel a pang of doubt. Would we be able to maintain our professionalism? Would our colleagues notice the shift in our dynamic? Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, breaking the momentary spell we had woven. Panic surged through me as I glanced toward the door. The last thing I wanted was for someone to walk in and witness us in this vulnerable state. "Let's wrap this up," I suggested, my heart racing. "We should probably get back." Jack nodded, but he didn't immediately pull away. Instead, he gently squeezed my hand, his eyes locking onto mine with a mix of warmth and intensity. "I'm glad we had this time together, Nancy. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that you matter to me." His words washed over me, filling me with a sense of comfort, but the reality of our situation loomed large. I pulled away reluctantly, the warmth of his touch lingering on my skin. As we exited the locker room, I felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread. The office was quiet, the glow of the computer screens casting a soft light in the otherwise dim room. I stole a glance at Jack, who was still wearing that captivating smile, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low. "I'm just processing everything," I replied, trying to steady my breath. "This could get complicated." "I know," he said, his expression serious now. "But let's take it one day at a time. We'll figure this out together." I nodded, appreciating his understanding. But as we made our way back to our desks, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. The uncharted territory we had ventured into was exhilarating, but it was also fraught with risks. The following weeks unfolded with a blend of excitement and tension. We continued to work closely together, but there was an unspoken agreement that we would keep our personal connection discreet. Every shared glance, every brush of our hands felt charged with unexpressed feelings. I found myself constantly evaluating our interactions, trying to navigate the fine line between personal and professional. Yet, as days turned into weeks, the thrill of our moment in the locker room began to feel like a double-edged sword. I cherished the connection we had forged, but the pressure of secrecy weighed heavily on my mind. One afternoon, as I was organizing files at my desk, I overheard two colleagues chatting nearby. Their conversation centered on office dynamics and the challenges of workplace relationships. My heart sank as I listened, knowing that if rumors began to circulate, it could jeopardize everything. I caught Jack's eye across the room, and we exchanged a look that spoke volumes. We both understood the stakes, the precariousness of our situation. That silent acknowledgement only deepened the bond between us, but it also heightened my anxiety. One evening, as we were leaving the office, Jack stopped me at the door. "Hey," he said, his voice low. "Can we talk?" "Sure," I replied, my pulse quickening. We stepped outside into the cool evening air, and I braced myself for what he had to say. "I've been thinking about how we navigate this," he began. "I don't want to lose what we have, but I also don't want to hide it forever. We need a plan." I nodded, appreciating his honesty. "I agree. But what does that look like for us?" Jack paused, looking out into the distance as if contemplating the possibilities. "Maybe we can start by being more open with each other. Let's keep our conversations honest, and if we feel overwhelmed, we take a step back." "That sounds fair," I replied, relief washing over me. "I think that will help." As we stood there in the fading light, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Yes, we were treading a complicated path, but we were doing it together. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew we had a connection worth nurturing. And with that, we walked back inside, ready to face whatever came next, together.